The 45th President of the United States and presidential candidate Donald Trump has been assassinated. This is the terrible news that almost happened and has sent waves around the world like a tsunami. Of course, it would have been the biggest story of the month, the year, and probably the entire decade. Fortunately, this was not the case, although it came very close. Look at this footage. The bullets barely missed Trump. They were about to, let's be clear, blow the former president's head off. It's pretty clear what the intention was. One of them even hit the top of his right ear. It was a very close call. Not surprisingly, the news made headlines around the world.
We do have some breaking news from the US we do need to go to now. There have been gunshots fired at a Donald Trump rally.
据美国媒体报道，美国前总统特朗普13号在
We begin this hour with breaking news. The former President Donald Trump has survived what law authorities are calling an assassination attempt at a rally.
As you all know, Trump was in the middle of a rally in the city of Butler, Pennsylvania, one of the states that will decide the upcoming elections.
This evening we had what we're calling an assassination attempt against our former president, Donald Trump. It's still an active crime scene.
Now then, what else do we know about the attack? First, we know that the Secret Service's performance left much to be desired. People at the rally alerted the security forces about a suspicious guy on a rooftop. There are even videos of the guy taken by people as he positioned himself to aim. However, the Secret Service handed this responsibility over to a local police force that was not at all prepared for this. And keep in mind, we're talking about one inexperienced guy acting alone who climbed onto an unprotected rooftop in broad daylight while being seen by people on the street below. It wasn't a sophisticated infiltration operation, or camouflaged, or anything of the sort. To top it off, this rooftop was only about 400 feet from Trump, very close, and the guy managed to fire 8 shots, graze Trump's ear, and almost blow his head off. How on earth is this possible? What's more, the platform on which Trump was standing was not well protected. The agents didn't secure the area, or establish basic surveillance systems like drone sweeps. Even after the first shots, the response wasn't the best. The former president was left exposed, and the evacuation was chaotic. Well, I think you've all seen the images. So, as I said, a disaster that almost cost Trump his life. And note that this is something the White House has somewhat acknowledged since Biden has called for an independent inquiry of the security measures before and after the assassination attempt on former President Donald J. Trump. He also ordered a review of all security measures for the upcoming Republican National Convention. And it's not just the White House. Mike Johnson has also said that Congress will conduct its own investigation, which includes calling the Secret Service Director Kimberly A. Cheatle to testify. Second, it's known that at least one spectator, Corey Comperator, who was in the line of fire, has died. He was 50 years old. So we're not just dealing with a trivial event, but rather the scene of a crime.
I would confirm for you that we did have one individual killed, and I know I heard somebody say about 2 victims. There were 3 in total besides the former president. So 2 critically wounded, 1 killed.
Third, we all now know who the shooter was, who, of course, was shot by the Secret Service. The FBI has identified the shooter as Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old from Bethel Park, a town located south of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. This shooter fired several shots, 8, according to an analysis by the New York Times, using an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle before being taken down. It's a type of rifle very common in the shootings that frequently plague the US, and which, incidentally, the Biden administration wants to ban. The question is, who was this guy? Well, it may surprise you all, but we're talking about a person with no criminal history, a student who received an award in maths and science in 2022, and who was registered as a Republican voter, although he did make a $15 donation in 2021 to a liberal activism group. But generally, he seemed to be a conservative-minded young man who was a member of the Clairton Sportsman's Club, a center with a shooting range where he could have trained. So far, nothing unusual has been found indicating fanaticism or danger. And the question is, what could lead a seemingly normal young man like this to commit such an atrocity? That is the doubt that now needs to be cleared up. But if one thing is clear, it is that it is not a good sign of the current state of affairs. In any case, what does seem clear is that, for better or worse, the attempt on Trump's life may have changed the political history of the United States.
What happened in the motorcade route? There's numerous people running up the hill.
We have to go back more than half a century to 1972 to talk about the last nearly successful assassination attempt against a presidential candidate in the United States during a campaign. On that occasion, the victim was George Wallace, a Democratic candidate who was shot 4 times and left wheelchair-bound for the rest of his life. Of course, this was not the last assassination attempt. President Ronald Reagan survived an attempt in 1981 that left him in hospital for nearly 2 weeks. A bullet lodged just 2.5 centimeters from his heart. In total, nearly 20 presidents or candidates have suffered assassination attempts or serious attempts on their lives in the United States, but this time may be different. It's true that the attack was the work of a lone wolf, but rarely has the political and social climate been so suffocating. The polarization and radicalization of political discourse are reaching extreme levels, and it shows. For example, a YouGov study published just a few days ago on 8th of July indicated that Democratic and Republican supporters have never had such negative opinions of each other. According to this study, more than 50% of Republican voters believe that the Democratic Party is corrupt, dishonest, and un-American. On the other hand, more than half of Democratic supporters describe the Republican Party as dangerous, hypocritical, and racist. For many of them, Trump has become something like the Antichrist of American politics. And for others, Biden was seen as a senile, disturbed old man, and above all, a true traitor. The politics of hate is splitting American society in two, and that may be the most disturbing thing of all. By the way, as a side note, this was not the first time Trump has faced a plan to end his life. In fact, it has been the 7th. For example, in June 2016, a British citizen attempted to steal a Las Vegas police officer's gun just a few meters from the podium where Trump was giving a speech in order to shoot him. Then, in November of that same year, also in Nevada, a man shouted that he saw a gun during Trump's speech, causing the events to be suspended. Later, while in office, Trump occasionally received letters containing ricin, a highly toxic biological substance, between 2018 and 2020. Hatred in its purest expression. I believe that after what happened on the 13th of July, many analysts, pseudo-journalists, YouTubers from both sides should look in the mirror and ask themselves what their contribution is to the general political climate. Their strategy of division and easy clicks could end up costing us all dearly. Of course, Trumpism itself has played a key role in fueling this situation. Few have used the campaign of polarization like they have, even resorting to videos like this.
And in 2022, I'm going to blow away the Democrat socialist agenda.
But okay, beyond whether an attack like this was foreseeable or not, and beyond whether we are dealing with an isolated action or a real underlying problem, unfortunately, we tend to think it's the latter. There's another question we need to ask ourselves. What impact could this attack have on the election campaign? As you can imagine, what happened in Pennsylvania is going to mark a turning point for the elections, and probably not so much because of the attack itself, but because of this image. This is perhaps one of the most iconic images of the last few decades, and certainly the most powerful photograph ever taken of Trump. The blood, the fist, the look, the flag, the Secret Service. It has everything. Trump had just been shot. His white shirt was torn, and his red cap was no longer on his head. His face was covered in blood, and the first thing he did was stand up and raise his fist. American strength concentrated in one image. And VisualPolitik community underestimating the power of this image would be a colossal mistake. If up until now the debate had been centered on Biden's lack of vitality and strength, Trump's image could be the definitive blow. A vigorous president versus a clumsy and weak one. Trump's campaign is fully aware of this and is now preparing for a massive rally. The Republican National Committee has rushed to make it clear that this week's convention in Milwaukee will not be cancelled, and that Trump, of course, will be there. We are experiencing a new form of politics where anything goes and where the adversary is constantly skinned alive. Then the decibels rise and everything gets out of control. But in order to talk about the possible political consequences, let's take a look at a political precedent. What happened in Pennsylvania reminds us quite a lot of what happened to one of President Trump's best political allies. I'm talking about Jair Bolsonaro. In September 2018, Brazil was also immersed in a polarized electoral campaign. Jair Bolsonaro was emerging as the main rival of Lula Lula da Silva's protege, Fernando Haddad. Then, in the middle of a rally surrounded by supporters, Bolsonaro was stabbed by a religious fanatic. Jair lost 40% of his blood after the attack, and although he survived, he suffered severe damage to his internal organs. And why am I telling you this? Because, unintentionally, that radical fanatic chose Brazil's next president. Although the attack kept Bolsonaro out of the political ring for a few days, once he rejoined the campaign, his support skyrocketed. It's similar to what happened to Reagan, whose approval rating jumped 22 points.
Letter came from Peter Sweeney. He's in the 2nd grade in the Riverside School in Rockville Center. And he said, "I hope you get well quick, or you might have to make a speech in your pajamas."
The question is, could something like this happen with Trump? Well, take a look at this graph. This is the average of the main election polls for the presidential race. Since Joe Biden's disastrous debate performance, Trump's polling numbers have improved significantly. Now the assassination attempt will likely boost that lead even further, due to empathy and the stark contrast it creates with Joe Biden's public image. In fact, look at what happened in the betting markets after the attack. Almost instantly after the attack, Trump's perceived probability of victory among those betting money on the election jumped 10 points to 70%. The betting markets seem to be quite certain. What's more, the assassination attempt has triggered a cascade of support for the former president. Support like this seems to tell us one thing: Trumpism might be experiencing its best moment yet. Therefore, let's be clear. The assassination attempt will mark a turning point, distancing the Democrats from being able to keep the White House. Now, the prevailing political discourse might be reversed. For many, Trump will no longer be seen as the executioner, accused of dividing society with his insults and bad manners. Instead, it will be his adversaries, who, through their actions and statements, are perceived as dividing people and even inciting violence. Certainly, Trump's campaign has wasted no time.
Today is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination.
This is very unfair, especially considering that Trump's team has not hesitated in fueling the political debate, or even failed to clearly condemn the attack on Nancy Pelosi's house, which resulted in her husband being hospitalized after being attacked with a hammer. But what can we say? That's politics. Now Trump, Donald Trump, can turn himself into the victim of hate, a survivor, and even the very reincarnation of Captain America if he chooses to. The Democrats will find it very difficult to reverse this situation, especially if an exhausted Joe Biden remains at the forefront of the campaign. What's more, this has happened right in the middle of the Democratic campaign to push the president aside. So what does this have to do with the attack? Now we have, on one hand, a survivor, a victim of hate and division, an energetic guy who stands up after being shot without hesitation, and on the other, we have chaos, weakness, and clumsiness. It might be unfair for what the Biden administration has been so far, but this is how most people seem to perceive the current political scenario. Politics, VisualPolitik community, is unfair. So, as I said, it's likely that in the coming days we will see a surge in support for the Republican candidates, and now it's not even clear that a change of candidates among the Democrats could help reverse this situation. In any case, the July 13th attack not only marks a turning point for this campaign, but it also reveals an unprecedented social climate marked by hatred for the opponent and strong disenchantment with the country's leadership. How will all this end? As always, on VisualPolitik, we'll be here to tell you all about it. For now, the question is for you. You can leave us your thoughts below in the comments, and we'll start a debate. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Many more videos about the US elections and many other topics are coming. As always, thank you so very much for being there. All the best. I'll see you soon.